Gina DeLuca here. All right, today I am revisiting some colors that I've used in a recent video and going to try for a regular straight pour. Just gonna see how these paints react. A lot of these are leftover paints that can really kind of change how they're going to react. Sometimes they'll be less reactive. However, these colors together are really beautiful, and I feel like whatever happens, it's probably going to be pretty. So that's what we're doing today. The colors I'm using are Liquitex Basics Unbleached Titanium. This color is Wild Atlantic by This Little Piggy Pigments. This color is the TriArt Quinacridone Violet. The next color is Persephone from This Little Piggy. This next one is Bloodstone, also from This Little Piggy. This last color here is Copper from DecoArt Americana Decor Metallics. And this color here, this is a mixture of several different paints. That is from a scraped painting, so it was everything that was on the painting. There were some DecoArt metallics in there, and I'm not sure what else. I do have a stock pot going on behind me, so if you hear some sizzling, I just put that on, and I think the pot was wet. So, multitasking. So good at that. ADHD people are really good at multitasking. Okay, so the unbleached titanium is going to be my background and my base coat. The paints have been mixed 1 part paint to 2 parts Floetrol and then thinned with water until I get the consistency that I'm looking for. This is the consistency for this painting. This is about a 2 on my consistency scale. It is making a mound, but it disappears quickly. It's making a nice thin, even stream off of my stick. It's not getting thin and then thick. If it does that, that means that you have an inconsistent consistency and you're going to need to mix it more. Hopefully you could see that. It's a pretty overhead angle, but hopefully you could see that. The pigments, the way they were mixed, I put a bit of Josonja varnish in the bottom of my cup, just enough to wet the pigments. And then I added some TriArt modeling paste in the matte and basically turned that into a tube paint consistency. And then I added Floetrol as if it were a regular paint. Because that's kind of what we did. We created a paint. So that's how that's all mixed up. And yeah, that's what's happening today. Before we get started, have you seen the Fluid Art inspiration cards? If you have, you can fast forward about a minute. But if you have not, what we have are 52 cards. There are 42 technique cards, and each technique card has an associated video here on YouTube that gives you all of the information that you need, the exact paint brand, color, consistency, the recipe, how to do it, all of the stuff I can't fit on a card. This is a picture of the painting in that video. This box contains a tip for this particular technique. And here at the bottom, you have the color palette that was used in this painting. And then these 2 boxes can be the basis of a 2-color palette, or you can build off of those colors. And there are also 8 bonus color palette cards. Each one has 5 color palettes. You can use all of the colors or just some of the colors. Mix and match the bonus color palette cards with the technique cards, and you have more combinations than you could ever paint in a lifetime. These are available at my website, ginadeluca.net, and also at amazon.com. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is put some of my base color in my cup. I'm going to do about 2 ounces. I want to make sure that there is enough paint in that cup for my cell makers to react with. If they're going to react, I want to give them the best chance possible. So matte paints, when used with a glossier paint, typically create cells. There are a few paint combinations that just don't seem to work. Prussian blue does not work. I've tried 3 different brands and I have gotten very, very little, if any, cells at all when using Prussian blue, even though it is glossy. And most recently I tried the Amsterdam Indigo in the Expert series and I got no reactions, and I was using fresh satin enamels, so that should have celled. So some paints just don't seem to react. But typically, a glossy paint and a matte paint together will give you cells. You'll notice that I have covered my edges already. The reason that I do that is because the way that I mix paints for a straight pour, I'm using Floetrol and it's pretty thin. That can lead to not great coverage on your sides. Your canvas can show through a bit, and I like to avoid that. A lot of times I use custom blended colors for my base coat, so then that's really hard to repeat, but also it's just a lot easier to paint the edges, to take the 2 minutes tops that it takes to cover the edges ahead of time than it would to try to do it later on and have to be precise about things. So we lay down a base coat in general because we want the paints to slide around easily and evenly. Something has to hit your canvas first, and if it is not your base coat, it is going to be your poured puddle, and the edges of the puddle will stick to the canvas, and then the center of the puddle will roll over top of that, and sometimes some of the coolest things happen on the edge. Okay. Oh my goodness, it started on the first try. Maybe my luck is turning around. If y'all have been following along, I have the house of sick kitties. That's still a thing. That's still going on. Satchmo has new ailments. I'm doing fine. It's all good. I'm fine. I'm not sweating. You're sweating. Okay, so my base coat is down, and now I'm going to put some paint in a cup. It is looking rather ominous outside. I think we might have a storm coming through soon. That always gets interesting around here. I live on the water, so I can see the storm coming across the water sometimes. It can get a little spooky every now and then. Okay, always check your consistency before adding to your cup. The sauce may thicken upon standing. This sauce thickened upon standing, so I'm just adding a couple of drops of water to it to make it the same consistency as the other paints. If your paints aren't the same consistency, the thinner paints will move faster than your thicker paints, and then you kind of wind up with these squiggles. in your painting. If your paints don't seem to be moving at the same rate of speed, that is probably why. So I try to be vigilant about that. Okay. I do want the blue to be a prominent color in this painting if I can make that happen. The last 2 times I've used it, it sank. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Maybe it'll sink again and I'll be sad. So starting with that blue, now moving to the Quinacridone Violet, and boy is this paint strongly pigmented. Like for real. This is some serious business here. And now for the Persephone, which is similar, and this thickened up too. It's similar to the Quinacridone Violet, but it has some shimmer to it. And a lot of times these colors kind of attach to each other. So I'm going to stick this in another cup so I can mix it properly, because this cup is too full and I'm not feeling like I'm able to incorporate the water I just added properly. It is okay to dirty another dish if it means coming out with a better product. Okay. So going to add that. It looks very different when it's wet because of the Floetrol. But when it dries, the Floetrol is clear and these pigments kind of take on another life. Now for the Bloodstone, and the copper, which also thickened up. I've been a bit distracted today trying to do a bunch of things at once, so my paints have been sitting for a while. That blue is just sitting on top. I don't know what's going to happen with that. I wanted it to end up at the center of my painting. Pouring the copper from up high and allowing it to really sink and churn. This is one of my cell makers. I do my cell makers last because I want them to end up in the center of the painting, and when I do it this way, a little bit, just a tiny bit, ends up at the very center and creates a focal point. And a bit of this mystery brown. And then I'm going to take some of this leftover base coat / background color, and I'm going to go over top. This is certainly more paint than I'm going to need. Let's make a mess, shall we? And as you can see, I am pouring fast and keeping it still. This is a true straight pour. No additives, no movement. I'll probably do a little something at the end because I always want to do something with my focal point. Maybe I'll do my traditional OG Fibonacci. A little trickier without a handle. Well, I botched that ending, so let's fix that. Points off for the dismount. Just going to come in and make a swirl. That's all. Easy peasy. Okay, so this creates a whole bunch of bubbles. And I mean a whole bunch. But we kind of want that. Because the bubbles in the underlying paint, as they come up, it brings paint with it. That can give us cells. Can give us cells. Doesn't necessarily mean we're going to get, you know, big, beautiful boulder cells. Not seeing a lot of boulder cell action. Typically, what would happen? I would get my boulder cells on this side and I get pop-up cells on this side. I am getting cells. There will be cells. There's a few little boulder cell looking things going on here with the copper. And I'm just going to keep popping these bubbles as they come up. This is also a very thick layer of paint on here. This is a lot of paint. This is about 4 ounces more than what I needed. So that's actually going to give me an opportunity to mess around with my composition a little more. I can decide what I want. The longer I wait to stretch this and allow these cells to pop up and grow, the bigger cells I will have after I stretch them out. I will get cells up here. More cells will pop up. It's gonna happen. I'm really happy that I have some blue in here. I definitely want to maximize keeping that blue. Might be a good reason to pull out a corner catcher. So the matte paints and the glossy paints. The matte paints have a hydrophobic effect. When they come up, it'll come up as a little tiny cell. But because of the hydrophobic effect that it has with the glossy paints, it's going to push that glossy paint away and is going to grow and get bigger. So that's what's happening. All these cells that I'm allowing to develop now, if I'm patient, they will get bigger. And then when I stretch it, that is when you get those cool 3D boulder cells. And the longer I let this sit, the more bubbles will come up, the more cells I will get before stretching. Sounds like I need some more juice in my torch. I really do love these colors together. They are super pretty. It is both vibrant and calming at the same time somehow. So for whatever reason, I guess just the way that it comes out of the cup and the way that I load the cup toward where the spout is. And then the way that the paints come out of the cup, I usually wind up with a whole mess of cells on this side before I tilt. And so this side, I usually get some really cool 3D looking cells. And then this side, I get cells that pop up after stretching. I call them pop-up cells. Some people call them pearl cells. But the first straight bore, which would be video number 15 for me, where I got a whole bunch of cells accidentally. Was not trying for cells, I was trying for just a gradient. And got a whole mess of cells. Why is this appearing like it's not level? It is pointing in the right direction. Okay. The cells will, the bubbles will just keep coming up. Kind of like cake batter. Patience is your friend when it comes to straight pours. It is your friend, I promise you. Okay, I'm bringing in a corner catcher here. I want to keep as much of this magenta / copper cellage and this blue as I can. And the first corner is always the toughest. The second toughest is the last corner because you don't have as much paint. So I just kind of let that fill up, but not spill over because I'm capturing it. And then I will bring it back, bring the weight paint back to center before removing the corner catcher. And I have preserved the maximum amount of paint, at least for that corner. Now I'm going to come to the opposite corner. I'm going to lose a lot of paint on this painting. That is just a fact. I did not measure these paints. I was using up leftover paints. In fact, maybe, who knows what they'll look like. I'll see if I can get it back in the cup. At least some of it. Oh, what is that? What is that? I have a spot here. It looks like maybe it was a drip of water right there. It is moving at lightning speed on tilting. So what I'm going to do is grab a clean piece of paper towel and I'm just going to dip it in there and see if indeed that is water. Okay, let's see. Is that better? I think so. Okay. Now coming back to center. Before I change directions, the weight of your paint is going to be where your paint is moving the fastest. And if you are mindful of where the weight of your paint is, you can get pretty good at directing exactly what you want tilted off. Okay, and again, bringing the paint back to center. And going to move very slowly. Trying to keep an eye on everything. It's like being the ref in a football game, but you're the only ref. You gotta watch everything and everyone all at once. Okay. Well, some of these cells are super cool. Got some really cool layers going on. Now I'm just going to adjust my composition. Using the rule of thirds here. This area is my focal point. I don't want that directly in the center. Okay. So, my corner here that I need to touch up. Could just grab some of these drippings and touch up your corners if they didn't get covered, which can happen because corners are tricky. Just grab a little dollop, like right where the paint fell, and it should be in the same color family. Also, scraping the painting will help to keep the paints from continuing to pull off the sides. The weight of the drips will pull more paint with it. So I usually come back a couple of times after I pour and do this. Also, it is a good way to make sure that your canvas is level because, oh, doo-doo. If, well, I'm gonna have to go check that out and see what needs to be fixed there. What was I saying? I squirreled myself. Oh, if your paint's not level, if your painting is not level, you will be getting drips more on one side than another. That's one way of telling if your canvas is not level. The best way is to use an actual level. Okay, I'm going to let this sit and I'm going to bring you in for a close-up. Back in a few. Okay, so here it is. This should be fully developed. Some really beautiful cells and colors going on in there. That is just like fire. That is lovely. I do like this color combination. Got a little softness in that area and then bold everywhere else. I love the blue with the magenta. It's really quite lovely. I am happy with this piece. Do check out the description box below for my affiliate links, Fluid Art Company, where you can get the this Little Piggy Pigments and the TriArt modeling paste. And also DecoArt is another affiliate. Use the coupon code provided and get 20% off. I receive a small commission at no additional cost to you. I also have other affiliates. Amazon, you can use that Amazon link. If you enter through that link, I receive a small commission. Again, at no additional cost to you. Easy way to help a sister out without costing you anything. Also in the description box, you will find links to my PayPal tip jar if you feel so inclined. Always appreciate it, certainly not expected. Those colors look so good together. I'm gonna have to do something else with these colors, I think. Possibly with some modifications, we'll see. But I'm digging it. That magenta and the copper and the blue together is gorgeous. Also in the description box, you will find a link to my website, GinaDeLuca.net, where you can find my art and music, fluid art inspiration cards for sale. And you will also find a link to our Facebook group. Go make some art, join us there, post your masterpieces, ask your questions. Good time is had by most. It is the internet after all. But that is it, I think, for me for today. I feel like I'm forgetting something, but hey, I usually do. But there it is. I hope y'all have a beautiful day. Now go make some art.